Hello and welcome back to the channel. Well, it seems like Amazon could stem the tide no further. They have finally opened the floodgates to these reviews, and let's just say that there are a significant quantity of the reviews that are not positive. Now, as we've seen, they put an embargo on their reviews. They said initially it was going to be 72 hours. Obviously, it took them longer to try to figure out a way to manipulate these numbers in a way that was going to be favorable to them. Just my opinion, just my thoughts on what they were actually doing, because it took them almost about a week instead. And during that time, they were also trying to hide things as they were on IMDb by not showing any negative reviews, even though the 1-star reviews were much less than the 10-star reviews. Again, if you're going to complain about review brigading and fake reviews, then this show is clearly not a 10-star, but that's just accepted. But people who complain or give it a 1-star, well, that's not okay. So that's considered review brigading. But more than that, they also actually put an embargo on all of the 1 through 5-star reviews. They refused to show anyone for at least a week, maybe longer, any of these reviews that were negative. And I gotta ask, why is that? Well, I think we all understand that they were trying to make this and spin this to be as positive as they could. But eventually, it was so well published that there's obviously negative reviews out there and that they're obviously hiding them. It's just not a good look for Amazon. It raises questions and it makes them look petty. It makes them look like they're not confident in their own show, and it makes them look like they have something to hide. But they absolutely do have something to hide. And that is because this show is getting absolutely wrecked in the ratings. On websites where they actually allow ratings, that this has pretty much been the score all along. It's been in the 30s. This might even make it up to 40%, but I don't think it'll be long before it dips back down. So it seems to be hovering in this, anywhere between 35 to 40% right now. And if we look at the user reviews, we can now see the 5-star and below user reviews. And again, when you see these reviews, you see a lot of reviews in here now. 5-star, 6-star, here's some 10, 7, 6s, 6, and here's 10s again. A lot of these that are positive are actually negative though. This is always interesting to me. When someone gives it a 7 but says, hey, it's a really slow show and it's kind of boring, but I hope it picks up soon. Those are interesting, but you see those on Rotten Tomatoes as well. But that's the whole point behind having reviews that you can read. You can read why the person thinks it's a 1-star or a 5-star or a 10-star, and then you can weight it accordingly. Now, in my opinion, it's not for Amazon to try to do that, to try to manage that and hide it. If they wanted to, then they simply could have put an embargo on all reviews that came out before the show debuted. But instead, IMDb put out an embargo only on negative reviews. All positive reviews were allowed, even if they were positive reviews that came out before the show aired. But any negative reviews, regardless of whether they came out before the show aired or even after the show aired, were completely ignored to try to give Amazon some breathing room, to try to give them time to fool people into thinking that the Rings of Power was actually good and to get people to try to watch it. Now, Amazon claims this was to deal, of course, with the trolls. But again, on IMDb, they only chose to hide the negative reviews. But on Amazon Prime Video, they chose to hide all reviews, and that was very interesting. I think that was telling that they did not know how to manage their own platform. And again, you could have, say, released all the reviews but only used the confirmed reviews. It's their platform. They know who's watched this. They know if someone's watched that actual show and watched it all the way through. And they could have basically set it up so that if someone hadn't watched the show, they couldn't review it. But then if they did that, then if someone came back and they're a verified viewer of the show and they give it a negative review, then Amazon looks really, really bad. That doesn't look good for them. And so that's why they didn't want to go that route. So instead, they just put an embargo on all reviews. And now they've finally released those as well. And even those are not going well for them. We go and take a look at the reviews. We've got lots of 3 stars, lots of 4-star, more 3 stars. So if we look at the reviews, we see that about 50% of them are 5-star reviews. Now that seems a little bit suspect to me. And again, this is just the sort of same thing that we see on IMDb, where you get a whole lot of people who are just giving it an automatic, look, it's perfect, even though it's obviously not perfect. And then you get another significant, but a lesser amount of people who are saying, no, this is the worst thing ever, I'm giving it a 1 star. And then you get all these people in the middle who are giving it probably the more realistic ratings, the 2 and 3 and 4, or the 2 through 9 if you're, on IMDb. But it seems like they have finally given up on trying to stem the tide of negative reviews, and they're finally allowing it. If we go to most recent, then we can see that there are indeed allowing 1-star reviews. This series should have never been filmed. I liked the cinematography, disliked the lack of character development of general content. Amazon is hurt and cannot handle simple criticism. This work is garbage, pacing is bad, acting is ridiculous. And these are actually the very same comments when you look at what was said by critics and even the ones that were clearly shilling for Amazon, but then had those little caveats. I've been bringing this up all along. You can go back and watch my videos. I was bringing up the fact that there were little caveats like this, like the fact that the show is not very good in terms of pacing, or that it's boring, or that the acting is not great, or that the dialogue is terrible. So people may be interchanging acting is terrible for dialogue is terrible. Both are basically going to come across as bad acting. Then we have this review, boring. I tried submitting a review the day the show released, but conveniently reviews were turned off for over a week. This show is not good, and for how much money has been spent, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I would recommend the writers go outside and listen to actual human beings talk to each other. Perhaps that would improve the dialogue. Again, complaints about the dialogue. These are all the common complaints that we're hearing, not Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And this is an interesting one, considering how they've gone to great lengths to assure us that this was some sort of faithful adaptation, while also dismissing it when people say, well, Tolkien specifically said Harfoots are hobbits, and that hobbits didn't have a significant role in this second age. So why are we seeing hobbits in there? And then they said, well, basically it's because people expect there to be hobbits since Lord of the Rings, and we want to just give people what they want instead of actually doing an adaptation of what Tolkien told us. We're not doing an adaptation of the story, we're doing what we wanted. We're making the story Tolkien never wrote. Those are their words, not mine. The show is awfully disappointing, and I believe it to be a major letdown to actual Lord of the Rings fans, as well as a massive failure on Amazon's part. Although it says in the title that this is The Lord of the Rings, there is almost no correlation to the actual lore other than the location names. Sure, visually it is appealing to me, echoing something else that we've heard, that the cinematography or that the special effects look pretty good, but that the rest of the show suffers. Now, with a budget of $62 million per episode, it better look good at the very least. Regardless, I think Amazon could and should do better. I think everyone would have been much happier if they had just created an entirely new world of fantasy instead of ruining an already existing one. Yeah, and that's another valid comment that people have said, look, instead of trying to ruin this one, why don't you just make your own if you want to make your own? If you want to make your own lore, that's fine. Then you can do whatever you want with it. You can do anything because it's your world then. You're creating it. Amazon seems like they've finally given up on trying to prevent this avalanche of criticism, the avalanche of negative reviews. Currently, Rings of Power sitting at a 3.5 star on the Amazon Prime website, and I imagine it will stay there because if you look at the ratings on Amazon Prime Video, there's not a lot of consistency in those ratings. They don't seem to reflect reality a lot of times. There's shows that have 4-star or 5-star that are terrible, and you just wonder, like, how in the hell is anyone giving these ratings? So I've never put much stock in the ratings on Amazon, but I think that they're going to try to reject enough of the low ratings so that they can keep this in this 3 and 3.5 star range. Obviously, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power on Rotten Tomatoes still coming in the 30% range, and still coming in the 6 range, basically, on IMDb. Now, I would say, again, this weighted average of 6.9 is a manipulated number, and the actual average is a 6.3. And anytime there's a big disparity between those numbers, you should probably take a pause and ask yourself, why does there have to be so much manipulation for these two numbers to match? When, for example, you can look at House of the Dragon and see that the rating is an 8.8 for the weighted average and the actual average is at 8.7. In other words, they're not needing to manipulate these numbers. The number is what the number is. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, if you want to continue to smash the narrative, then smash the like, subscribe, and share buttons, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.